We have a brand. New York has a brand. And when people see it, it means something. You know, when we go there, it's not, Kansas doesn't have a brand. You know?
A story of betrayal by public workers in New York City. 18 of them arrested today for stealing identities, some of which belong to people who were dead. All this to get financial benefits during the COVID pandemic. City employees charged with illegally getting those benefits.
In total, 5 New York City DHS employees, as well as employees of the NYPD, MTA, U.S. Postal Service, and NYCHA, have been arrested and charged with conspiracy and other charges. So we're talking 18 government workers. Prosecutors believe between April of 2020 and October of 2021, these employees were responsible for stealing $1.2 million in fraudulent unemployment benefits that were being given out during the pandemic. Prosecutors say the DH employees, they believe, basically spearheaded this entire thing because they had access to the personal information of people staying in shelters. They had access to the paper files, to the electronic files, and they would give that personal information out to their co-conspirators, and everyone would use it to falsely file for these benefits and get checks in the mail.
4 people arrested in connection with those human remains found scattered across Long Island walked out of court free until their next court appearance.
Police say they have made a number of arrests during a pro-Palestinian protest in Union Square this evening. Demonstrators blocked traffic on 14th Street. As part of International Women's Day, demonstrators there gathered for what was called a global strike for Gaza.
Police are looking for a suspect after a shooting at a Midtown recording studio.
Yeah, authorities say the victim is in critical condition after being shot in the head.
Meanwhile, tonight, more than 3 months after the killing of a laundromat owner in Brooklyn, New York cops tonight arresting 5 people and charging them with murder. 4 adults from Queens and a 16-year-old who's being charged as an adult, now facing murder and robbery charges in the death of 37-year-old Money Perkins. He was shot several times in his laundromat in East Flatbush.
Tonight, the National Guard is set to patrol the New York City subway system, a show of force after a series of violent attacks.
This update tonight on the fatal shooting of a bodega worker in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Police have made an arrest in the case. 37-year-old Nazim Berry was shot in the head last week inside the store on the corner of Franklin Avenue and Lincoln Place.
Chaos in Times Square, protesters clashing with police. From above, you can see the sheer numbers, the crowd massive in this Citizen Ave video. And up close, you could hear the NYPD trying to control the crowd. Those in the crowd, according to the NYPD, pro-Palestinian protesters who, through their demonstration, police say, blocked cops from responding to a call at West 42nd Street and 7th Avenue about a potential explosive device.
A woman is in the hospital tonight fighting for her life. Police say her boyfriend pushed her onto the subway tracks in the financial district.
There is a furniture store owner in Queens. He is immigrated here from Senegal about 10 years ago. He had dozens of migrant men from West Africa in his basement, sleeping on cots, sleeping on mattresses, and the floor of his basement, the basement of the furniture store there. Then it turns out that in the Bronx, he also owned another store, and he had this similar situation, these mattresses. And remember, it's cold here in New York right now. We're in the middle of winter. There's space heaters, which are very dangerous. There were extension cords, all types of things, which the fire department felt was a fire hazard. So they shut down both of those locations. But you're talking over 100 men, at least 45 beds, about 70 men in each location. And some of them reportedly were paying up to $300 a month just to have a place to sleep. Now, what's happened this week is you're showing the video of the migrant crime wave that we've been experiencing here in New York. And it's reached a point where people are saying this has gone too far. It's very organized, as you see with the video right there with the moped ring. They had 62 incidents. They were being given orders by a man over WhatsApp of what to rob and what to steal. You see them stealing bags, they were stealing phones, and some of them were already arrested. But here's the problem. Once they're arrested, the NYPD, because New York City is a sanctuary city, has no liaison with ICE.
Meanwhile, the woman arrested for hitting a subway performer in the head with a metal bottle is behind bars for committing another crime, allegedly. Police say they picked up Amira Hunter yesterday for stealing a $235 baseball cap from Nordstrom's. Despite 8 prior arrests and 2 active bench warrants for failing to come to court and prosecutors asking for her to be held on bail, a judge let her go on supervised release.
This building on the corner of 3rd and Bond Streets in the Gowanus neighborhood is where the city plans to open a shelter with 400 beds for male migrants, a move being fought by lifelong residents like Andrea Raimundi, who's worried for her safety.
There's a lot of problems with these shelters, and on the train there's problems, where people live there's problems. I'm a single person. I living alone, I don't feel safe.
It was standing room only for a community meeting held Monday night where officials presented their plans. A lawsuit's already been filed to block the shelter, and residents lined up to sign a petition.
Violating New York City traffic rules. If you do not follow the arresting officer
Police made an arrest in connection to the torso that was found in a Bronx apartment earlier this week.
Their suspect, a man who just got out of prison nearly a year ago, claiming he turned his life around, even worked with at-risk youth in Queens, talked about it recently on a very popular podcast as well.
Sheldon Johnson, the suspect, says that he was a high-ranking member of the Bloods, but says that was his old life. He had changed now, or so prosecutors and police thought. That's until they found body parts inside his freezer.
48-year-old Sheldon Johnson claiming his innocence after being walked by police in handcuffs. He has been arraigned on several charges, including concealment of a corpse and murder, and was ordered to be held without bail. This is Johnson recently on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about how he had turned his life around and was working at the Queens Public Defender's Office after serving 25 years behind bars.
Is there advantage to get rid of you? Because I was the type of person who would say, "You doing that for what reason? Nah, you can't do that. The rule says that you can't do this, you can't do this. This is what the rules say." And the rules of the prison or the rules of the streets? Gang. The rules of the street. Yeah. So I was a rule guy, and they just, it was to their advantage to get me out of the way. So when I decided to take a step back, they were like, yes. And it was to my advantage as well. And this was in 2005. So there was no resistance? None. And at that time, this is where a lot of the what they call set tripping began. The organization began to implode on itself. The gang organization. The gang organization. There was a lot of infighting, sets against sets, and I was just always against that. And it was time for me to go, and I didn't care whatever the consequences was. I was fortunate that there weren't any consequences. But I didn't care what the consequences was. I just walked away.
And then that begins your journey.
This begins my journey. I got into school. I got my GED. From there, I got involved in correspondence courses. I started interacting with guys who were teaching ART, aggression replacement training, and I started to begin to understand how these concepts work, what positive visualization is, deep breathing, how to remove yourself, conflict resolution. All of these ideas of change began to take place with me. Substance abuse. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I was smoking like 30 cigarettes a day. I'm literally having chest pains from smoking cigarettes. And I realized that I wanted to live. And the only way that I was going to be able to live and walk out of prison was to remove myself from these substances.
We have a brand. New York has a brand.